Are you obedient to God in Christ? There is a trend occurring on YouTube where there are many Christian leaders desiring to debate one another. And there are videos from each of those persons challenging each other. Now, these are so-called religious leaders who are wanting to debate. And one would think, for what end? Is it to satisfy some selfish desire that they have, or the desire to be right, or is it for the purpose of advancing God's work? Now, you see them, they shout, they yell, they strut around up there on the podium. They come across as being very angry and vindictive. Their faces are all contorted, fingers pointing, and they are on full display before the entire world. And I've said this before, if I was a person who's interested in becoming a Christian or in joining any religious group that those persons are a part of or who belong to, I would be reluctant, because, for lack of a better word, what I am observing, it's crazy. It's like there's something in the air that's causing persons who claim to be godly persons to lose it. It's almost as if they have forgotten a much higher purpose or the much higher calling, and that is to bring persons to God, and for those who claim that they're Christians, to bring persons to Christ. And I just don't see that happening. I see persons out here in the YouTube space who are really, what they're doing is that they're providing entertainment. And let's face it, a lot of people, they love drama. You ever watch these programs on television like Basketball Wives, and those types of programs? You see, those programs, what's the hook? Drama. And those programs don't require lots of money to produce. So we have very little investment in creating those types of programs, but they reap incredible amounts of revenue. And so I see out here in the YouTube space, and even outside of it, these mega churches and these mega preachers and teachers, they are providing those who sit in the pews entertainment, and they reap the benefits of that. Money is going to come their way. They become money magnets. And I see this on YouTube. I believe that these individuals are desiring to debate for several reasons. One, I believe they do so because of some human weakness that we all have, the desire to be right and not to be wrong. It's a very difficult thing for persons to admit that they're wrong, to say that they're sorry, that they are in error, especially if you have stationed yourselves above others as being very knowledgeable. Now, in my view, there's nothing wrong with admitting that you have been wrong or that you are in error. That makes you more attractive as a teacher, preacher, or whatever it is that you claim that you want, that you are. But if you never admit error and that you have been wrong about something, I'm referring to persons who state themselves above others as teachers and preachers, then that's unattractive, because you're saying that you know it all, you know everything, and no one else does. And this is prevalent out here on the YouTube space. But these persons are on full display before the world. It is not a good look for air quote Christianity. It makes all of it look foolish. Now, I watched a video this morning. This individual was going in on those types of persons who want to debate and quarrel and fight. And he said that he loves both those persons, and you see that they're fighting amongst one another. If all of you are brothers and sisters, that is Christians, why don't you correct one another? It's not possible. And I'm going to tell you why it's not possible. Because there are so many denominations, each one teaching Christ differently, and you contend with one another. So for one to admit that, okay, I was in error or that I was wrong, implies that the other ones are right, and they're not going to do that. Out of fear, perhaps, of losing likes, views, and subscribers. I think that's a part of it as well. So it makes one wonder, are these individuals doing these things for the advancement of God's work or for selfish desires? Jesus said this at Luke chapter 6, verse 45 and 46. Jesus said, "A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." And then Jesus goes on to say, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you do not do what I say?" So are those individuals who want to debate and quarrel and fight amongst themselves, are they being obedient to God and to Christ? As Jesus says here, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and you do not do what I say?" In the letter of James at chapter 4, beginning at verse 1 through 3, we read, "What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and you fight." We see persons who stand up on the pulpit, whether it's in YouTube or outside of it, what is it that they desire? They desire acceptance to the things that they say. They can't take disagreements. They cannot take questions and challenges to the things that they say. So, in return, what they do is they quarrel and they fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. And you would think that if these persons are religious leaders, rather than debate among other persons who also claim that they are godly persons, Christians, that they would set aside all that pride and arrogance and debating spirit and ask God. If what they're saying is the truth, then ask God for verification. Don't they have faith in God? You see, Jesus is correct that we are living in a faithless generation. These persons will do everything. They'll point fingers at their brothers and sisters, saying you're wrong and I'm right, and to prove it, I'll debate you, rather than going to God and asking God to provide the correction. That shows a gross lack of faith. And continuing with James chapter 4 at verse 3, "When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures." See, those persons who get up there on the pulpit, virtual, YouTube, or outside of it, they're doing that for themselves, to make a name for themselves, to quench this thirst, this desire for self-gratification before others, to say, you see, I'm right and they're wrong. And to prove it, I'll debate them. That is immature thinking, and that does not advance God's work. Yet none of you desire to work it out. How do you work it out? By asking God to correct all of it. So you quarrel and you fight and you debate with one another, rather than trusting God and asking God to settle this matter. God isn't asking you to debate anything. Why would you want to debate the truth? If you're speaking the truth, let the truth defend itself. It doesn't need your help. If other persons are speaking what is not truthful, it's going to fade away anyway, and the truth is going to shine in the end. Where's your patience? Where's your trust in God? Leave those persons alone, and they should leave you alone. If you're doing what Jesus says you should be doing, if you're teaching and preaching the truth, why are you so agitated? Leave it alone. At James chapter 4, verse 11, James writes, "Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or a sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it." So what is slander? Slander is defamation or the act of harming a person. It is damaging a person's reputation. So that's the crux of the issue here when persons want to debate other persons who also claim that they're godly and that they're Christians also, just like you. Your desire is to defame those persons, to tarnish them. That's not for you to do. You are not to be judges over other persons. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again in this video. There are many persons within the camp of Christianity, and even those who claim that they're not Christians, who love to take this right here, this finger, and point it at others. But they don't see the three more fingers pointing back at themselves. They are so righteous, they are so self-righteous, there's not an ounce of humility in them. They so desire to be right. So much so that they'll create YouTube videos saying those persons over there are wrong, they're false, implying what? That they are right. They're never wrong, they're never in error. Yet those persons, just like you, claim that they are godly also, that they're Christians just like you. So aren't they your brothers and sisters? So why are you trying to defame or damage their reputations? Trust in God. Leave that up to God. He will expose the false. He will expose the false teachers among us, the false prophets, the false prophetesses. Leave them alone, because I believe God is letting them do what they want to do, fattening themselves up like a pig before the slaughter. Don't try to disrupt what you cannot see. You cannot see God's farsightedness, his purpose in allowing these things to happen. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing anyone can do by pointing fingers at those persons over there and those persons over there, saying that they're false and that they're liars, that they're this and that they're that. It doesn't accomplish anything. You might find yourself fighting against God's purpose in allowing those things to happen. What one should do if they desire to advance God's work is to be obedient to God by keeping that command that God gave us at Luke chapter 9, verse 35, to listen to his son, Christ's teachings, cling to those. And also what Jesus says there at Luke chapter 6, verse 46, to do what he says. Focus on you. Don't worry about others. The day will take care of itself. Tomorrow, if it comes, will take care of itself. Many of you are too aggressive, you're too proactive in trying to shut other persons up. I've had that happen to me. I've had my website hacked 3 times, and I make backups to my website. I've had persons come to me in a YouTube space. Rather than addressing the topics that I bring up, or even addressing the scriptures that I mention, I become the subject of the discussion. See, that's a dragging of a red herring. See, rather than address the things that I mention as far as scripture, they make me the topic. See how that works? It's taking the path of least resistance. If I do a video on, say, the Trinity, for example, and I list, say, 17 or so scriptures showing that Trinity is not something Christ taught, rather than those individuals address, that is, those Trinitarians, rather than those individuals address those scriptures, they just push that aside and they come at me and they seek to defame me. I don't worry about that. So when those who claim to be godly persons quarrel, fight, and debate, are they being obedient to God and Christ? Or are they just completely ignoring the things that God has spoken through his prophets and through his son, and ignoring what Christ himself has taught and what he's taught his apostles, in lieu for satisfying their own selfish desires? You decide. This is R. Jerome Harris. Thank you for listening.